Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome, America. I've been thinking of a number of these issues today, the best way to address them. And I want to begin with this Manhattan trial. And then I want to begin, after that, with Joe Biden at the Holocaust Museum and Memorial. But first, this Manhattan case. And by the way, as a side note, I notice what I post on social media is regurgitated on TV, so I'm loath sometimes to post it because social media is very limiting on how you can present information. So I can present it, but it requires, in my view, a more substantive presentation. In the Manhattan case, you're seeing the naked use of the criminal justice system and judicial system to smear, threaten, humiliate, and destroy a political opponent of the Democrat Party. Indeed, perhaps the most powerful political opponent the Democrat Party has ever confronted. Therefore, tactics of the old Soviet Union and the French Revolution must be used to one degree or another. For the actual American justice system won't deliver to the Democrats what they demand. The elimination of Trump as a candidate or the crippling of him to such an extent that he cannot win. The Democrat Party must be protected and empowered at all costs, just like the Communist Party throughout the last 150 years and numerous fascistic parties. This is a show trial. It's not a trial based on Western values and principles, including those adopted by our founding fathers. It's a trial whose outcome is preordained, or at least that's the objective. It'll take a strong juror to reject what the Democrat Party demands of him. There's always hope. But that grave damage has been done to a once treasured American system of justice. This is the third trial conducted by the New York Democrat Party for the benefit of the state and federal parties. Joe Biden, congressional Democrats, etc. It is conducted for propaganda purposes, for political purposes, and to make clear that anyone who dares to challenge the party in a fundamental and serious way will be punished, ruined, if not destroyed, simply by having to go through such a tyrannical process. You will pay an unimaginable price, as will your family. Your businesses will be destroyed and seized from you. Everything you've built over more than half a century will be subjected to the party's wrecking ball. And the fact that there is a presidential election is precisely why this case and the others must be heard now, must be conducted by Democrat prosecutors and by Democrat judges under the pretext of enforcing and upholding the law, laws that have absolutely nothing to do with the alleged offenses. President Trump has been indicted for crimes that do not exist and have not been committed. He's been subjected to SWAT teams, and his personal phone records have been seized by the government. He was denied attorney-client privilege, normal appellate processes, and protections historically afforded former presidents. And the list goes on. And of course, Democrat Party officials, operatives, and media are giddy. They urge his imprisonment for supposedly violating outrageously unconstitutional gag orders that prevent President Trump from defending himself against these injustices and abuses, while everyone else, including prosecution witnesses, are free to say whatever they want. And the judge is so thoroughly conflicted, his refusal to recuse himself underscores how corrupt he and his courtroom are. The judge allows virtually all information into the trial, especially testimony that has absolutely nothing to do with the case at all, and a case that has nothing to do with anything either. The most important way to fix this is on November 5th. It won't be a permanent fix, but it can be a first step. A Trump win will demonstrate that even these totalitarian tactics will not stop the American people from doing what is right. I've done a lot of reading, a lot of research on what it was like to be put on trial in various totalitarian regimes. It's just like this. To destroy a person's reputation. To bring in whatever information you can, whatever witnesses you can. To degrade the individual. To smear the individual. To libel the individual. There are no rules in this courtroom. The judge rules with an iron fist. But the normal rules that take place in a courtroom, rules of evidence, rules of witness notice, rules of what crime you're actually trying to defend your client against, those rules don't apply. We've actually never witnessed anything like this before, ladies and gentlemen. Never. The criminal justice system, the judicial system in America has been destroyed. You should have no faith in it anymore. And the judges have themselves to blame, as do the prosecutors all over the country. I don't even hear Republican district attorneys or attorneys general speaking out, condemning what's taking place. They hide in their own jurisdictions, behind their big desks. They don't want anything to do with it. Nothing. I see Republicans like Paul Ryan, Chris Christie, say the most damnable things. Apparently they can't rise to the moment to defend their country. They're still caught up in their personal animus. I see Nikki Haley. A few months ago, she wouldn't shut the hell up. Now she won't speak up. Just watching as this takes place. Because her moral center isn't a moral center at all. She wants to be president, and she'll walk over anybody and do anything to accomplish that. But she'll have to walk through us. This is the time right now that determines those who support this country and love it and those who don't. Will put aside their personal political animus or won't. Is more worried about what Biden's doing to our country than all the lies and the rest about Trump. We had Trump for 4 years. He didn't do this to the judicial system. He didn't defy Supreme Court rulings. He didn't defy federal law with open borders, student loans, Obamacare for DACA, and the list goes on and on. He did none of that. He was harassed and harangued, stalked from the moment he decided to run for office and won office. The administrative state rose up. The police state, the intelligence state, the massive bureaucracy, they rose up. They rule the roost. Who is this man? He must be destroyed. And they work with the Democrat Party. They work with the media, the leaks, the lies. The man didn't have a day of peace as President of the United States. Not one. Now they drag out this porn actor who had signed a non-disclosure agreement, who'd been paid at her demand. That's out the window. She wants more money. They put her on a stand over a bookkeeping issue that they're trying to turn into a federal election felony. I was the first to say, I notice I do that a lot, as the others burp it up today. This is a dead case walking. The problem is the appeal won't be heard until well after the general election. And so this isn't about the law. This isn't about a bookkeeping error. This isn't about a federal campaign action in which this judge and this prosecutor have absolutely no jurisdiction of any kind. You also heard a legal analyst say today that the effort is underscored, Biden's role, by the fact that the Department of Justice hasn't gone into any court to object to the violation of the federal jurisdiction by the localities. I think I've been saying that for 2 months, here and on TV and beyond. It's okay. They're catching on. That's good. I talked about collateral evidence. And the decision by the highest court in New York to throw out Weinstein's conviction because of all the collateral evidence coming in. Now that's common fare by the legal analysts, and that's good. And that's taking place. And the judge doesn't care because the judge's mission is not to be a judge. The judge's mission is as an operative for the Democrat Party and the Biden re-election campaign. Just like a judge in the Soviet Union. Judge isn't there to follow any semblance of due process or justice. The judge is there to get the job done. The conviction. Maybe we'll have a courageous juror or two. That would be great. That does not excuse what's taking place. Well, the justice system works. No, it doesn't. It's broken badly by the Democrats. It's not a justice system. Any more than you can call what happened during the French Revolution a justice system. Any more than you can call what Stalin did to his political opponents a justice system. You ever hear of Eugene Debs, Mr. Producer? You've heard me talk about him a little bit. He was a radical socialist. And he was given a hell of a time to Woodrow Wilson, who, of course, was a radical socialist and a racist. Democrats, both. And so he got Congress to pass, you may be familiar with this, ladies and gentlemen, 1917, the Espionage Act. A very broad act. intended to silence opponents to Wilson and his entry into World War I. Eugene Debs was an opponent. He was an isolationist of our entrance into World War I. He's also a presidential candidate in multiple election cycles. But Woodrow Wilson couldn't afford to lose a couple percentage of the vote. I mean, his first election, he won because the Republican Party was split between Theodore Roosevelt and Howard Taft, and he snuck through. And he didn't want any problems this time around. He was a minority president in terms of the vote numbers, and he wanted to be a majority president. And he wanted to ensure his reelection. So he sent out the federales, I guess, to arrest him. And he ran for president still, did Debs, from prison, from federal prison. I think he got 2 or 3% of the vote. If you think the Democrat Party is beyond this, you're dead wrong. If you think the American media are beyond this, you're dead wrong. We live in a country where we have a monopoly party that pushes the agenda of the Democrat Party, whether or not they're elected. They own the culture, the colleges and the universities and the media. They own Hollywood. And they have no intention of going into the night quietly. And the greatest threat they face, or maybe have ever faced, is Donald J. Trump. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, folks, China, Russia, Iran, they're all on the move. Right here in the U.S., you've got inflation, you have open borders, and, of course, an election year. Oh, and we just crossed over $34 trillion in debt with no signs of slowing down. It's time to wake up, folks. There's a lot at risk, possibly even your retirement account. The time to protect yourself is before a crisis, not after. Advantage Gold, the gold and silver company I recommend to help Americans. Well, they'll help you prepare now for times just like these. Call them at 800-900-8000 today. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit. Plus, tell them I sent you, and they'll give you a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. Call Advantage Gold today. Here's the number, 800-900-8000. Plus, see if you qualify to get your special discount worth up to $1,300 today, 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. You know, people say this happened quickly. Well, tyranny speeds up after a while when the constitutional firewalls have been breached. If you've been listening to this program, which will be 22 years come September, you'll know we've been talking about this for a long time. You know, I've written books about it for a long time. So it didn't happen overnight. But what has happened overnight is the intensity, the aggressiveness of the tyranny that we are experiencing. And trust me, we are experiencing it. I'll be right back. You know, folks, we've got an awful lot swirling around this country, both internally and externally. We've got wars going on in all parts of the world. We've got riots effectively going on in our colleges and universities. We have inflation through the roof. It's an election year to boot. All these problems are often huge tailwinds for gold, which is why gold is at all-time highs, looking like it's going to go higher. And when it comes to gold, I only trust my friends at Advantage Gold. They help Americans just like you protect your retirement accounts and help safeguard your wealth through diversification. So call them right now. 800-900-8000. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit plus a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. Call Advantage Gold right now, 800-900-8000. See if you qualify to get your special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 today. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, the great one.
The great one, Mark Levin.
Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
A couple of years back, when Joe Biden decided to run for president, there was an article that appeared. It was in 2020. And it was written by a journalist who had followed Biden for much, if not most, of his political career. And among other things, she interviewed a former senior staffer to Biden who dealt with, among other things, foreign policy and matters related to Israel. And I read that to you several months ago. And what this former Biden Senate staffer said is, Joe Biden says he supports Israel, says he would defend Israel to the end, but those are only words intended to get the Jewish vote. Those were only words intended to get the Jewish vote. Joe Biden made statements soon after October 7th. He flew to Israel, assuring the Israelis, the Jews there, the government there, the Prime Minister Netanyahu, that he had their backs, that there was no space between them, and that he would do everything and anything to support Israel. He lied. And that's never been Joe Biden's actual position, whether it was Menachem Begin, Netanyahu, or anybody in between. Since then, he and his State Department have conducted war crimes investigations against Israel. They've worked with radical left-wing groups we now know. Emails have appeared, thanks to Free Beacon, to subject and target Jews who live in Judea and Samaria, which Biden wants to give to the Palestinians, to all kinds of abuses of power and civil rights abuses by our own State Department, targeting them, punishing them in another country. He has both privately and publicly condemned the elected Israeli government. He has, and his staff, worked with radicals in Israel to try and overthrow that government. He's worked with Democrats in our country, including Schumer, among others, calling for the ouster of the Prime Minister of Israel. This in the face of a war that the terrorists started and always start. He hasn't once spoken about the brave young people in the IDF, the vast majority of whom are not regular army. They're shopkeepers. They're salesmen. They're IT workers. They're plumbers. They're truck drivers. They have families. And every day you see the beautiful faces of these young men who are called up to defend their people, their country, who've been killed. Not once has he ever talked about them. Not once. Any more than he's ever talked about the 3 American soldiers who were killed by Iran. So he gives his speech today on Holocaust remembrance. It's a well-written speech. People have been wondering, where the hell is he? would seem to me, if you're speaking from your heart and your soul, if you're speaking from a moral conscience, you would have said the things that were written for you today a long time ago. But he didn't, and he wouldn't. He kept drawing a moral equivalency between the virulent, rabid Jew hatred and anti-Semitism on our college campuses and in our media, funded by his party, funded by Hamas, funded by Communist China, funded by Qatar. And even today, he did little to direct the government to put an end to it. He didn't send in the U.S. Marshals, as our buddy Leo Terrell suggested last week, to ensure that Jewish kids could go to class so that graduation could happen for all kids. He didn't do any of that. He didn't denounce Soros, Pritzker, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, to stop paying for the Jew hatred and even more broadly, the hatred of our own country, the burning of our flag that's going on our college campuses now. None of that happened. Biden did what he feels he needed to do to shore up his Jewish liberal voters, and it'll work for them because they don't live in Israel. Because their children and grandchildren aren't fighting the enemy over there. They don't have to live with the consequences of the Biden administration blocking and slow-walking key munitions that the Israelis need to finish off Hamas. And as a footnote, since I was the first to bring it up, my buddy Higgins reminded me of it in an email. James Higgins. He's in violation of the Impoundment Act, and hence the Constitution. The monies were approved by Congress, signed by Biden, and now he's sitting on it. The president doesn't have that power. Not anymore. Nixon tried. It's one of the reasons they sought to impeach him. The things he says about Israel's war tactics, it's not just an attack on Netanyahu, it's an attack on the Israeli people, the Jewish people of Israel. You heard Nora O'Donnell regurgitate it Sunday. I played it for you yesterday. The indiscriminate bombing. If Israel wanted to wipe Gaza off the face of the earth, it could do so with one or two bombs. But it doesn't, does it? No, it doesn't. And why does this administration and their media hacks and thugs keep regurgitating Hamas information, Hamas statistics? Because they hate Israel. That's why. This administration is the most anti-Israel, anti-Semitic administration perhaps ever. Certainly in recent times. Joe Biden gave that speech because that staffer of his was right. He doesn't want to lose the votes of liberal Jews. Joe Biden talks up Islamophobia and trashes the Jewish state because he doesn't want to lose the vote of the Hitler Youth. And Muslims in places like Dearbornistan and imams in Virginia, New Jersey, California, and elsewhere who are preaching the annihilation, the evisceration of the Jews. So finally, they say, Biden spoke out definitively on a Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's actually a week, but that's okay. as he puts his foot on the throat of Israel. Israel wants a victory. Biden wants surrender and capitulation. It's what he did in Afghanistan. Quite frankly, that's what he's doing to the Ukrainians. Whether many of you understand that or not. But that's what he's doing. I don't care how many damn speeches he gives. I don't care where he gives them. I don't care who wrote them. That old line, action speaks louder than words. Well, his actions, constantly undermining the leadership in Israel, constantly undermining the military in Israel, constantly leaking to a backstabbing Israeli reporter, Barak Ravid, over at Axios, another self-hater, constantly leaking to their buddy Thomas Friedman, who despises the state of Israel, and Netanyahu. Does nothing to stop Iran from funding terrorists that surround the state of Israel. In fact, he funds Iran so they can. And he funded October 7th. Donald Trump, who they seek to put in prison the rest of his life. Netanyahu, who they seek to dethrone. It was Donald Trump who used economic, trade, and other tactics to strangle Iran. The people of Iran, they're not Arabs, they're Persians. They hate this government. I read to you some of the human rights abuses of Iran. How they slaughter their own people, torture their own people, rape their own people, spy on their own people, monitor their own people, both in Iran and overseas. Biden gave them sustenance. He gave them the ability to buy weapons to fund Hamas, which is exactly what they did on the October 7 attack. He takes no responsibility for it. Two things were missing from Biden's speech. One I already addressed. A list of what it is. Not I set up a program or I did. A list of specific actions that this government would take. And in addition to acknowledging what's taking place in our country, apologizing for his role in gaslighting it with the horrendous things he has said about the state of Israel, about the government of Israel, about the military in Israel, for standing with the terrorist little bastard from Jordan and with his friends at Qatar that fund Hamas and protect Hamas, the billions that were given to Iran, that flowed into Iran. They're selling oil to the communist Chinese, who in turn are our enemy. An apology is what Joe Biden owed on this Holocaust Remembrance Day. For his treatment of Prime Minister Menachem Begin, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But no, he'll be celebrated. Not by me. They say the proof is in the pudding. Actions speak louder than words. Pick up any one of those old, worn statements because they apply. As I speak, more to the point, as he spoke at the Holocaust Museum and Memorial, his orders went out to stop munitions from flowing to the state of Israel, so the Jewish people could destroy once and for all a terrorist organization that was founded by the Muslim Brotherhood for the purpose of murdering every single Jew, not just in the Middle East, but around the world, and overthrowing our country. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All over the world, our enemies are on the move. And in our own country, same thing. Things are tough between rising prices, election issues, a $34 trillion debt. But folks, there is good news. If you're smart, you can use these problems to your advantage. By making the right choices right now, you can keep your retirement money safe and even make more money in this climate. That's where Advantage Gold comes in. They're experts in helping Americans protect their savings with gold and silver. It's called diversification. Call Advantage Gold today, 800-900-8000. They'll send you a free 2024 gold and silver kit that tells you how to keep your money safe when things are bad. Tell them I sent you, and you may qualify for a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. 800-900-8000. See if you qualify for that special discount worth up to $1,300. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. You should always consult your financial and tax professionals. Just listen, Biden keeps saying Israel has our ironclad support while he's blocking munitions. Now, come on. The Democrat Party has a tough, high wire act here. They have to really walk the line. I keep hearing reporters say, yeah, because they are morally bankrupt and they'll do anything for votes. Imprison Trump, steal elections. Oh, yeah. Change the electoral process. And they don't want peace in the Middle East. Peace in the Middle East is defeating the terrorists. They don't want their base to be riled up if Israel destroys the terrorists. That's what's going on. I want to tell you about Advantage Gold. Let me ask you a question. Do you think the Israelis want Trump to win or Biden to win this election, Mr. Producer? Easy one. Easy one. And that's the truth. But what's going on in our country, in this courtroom, should disgust you. It should upset you. Our legal system has turned into a criminalization system, the criminalization of politics. It's not a justice system. It's a legal system. I mean, every society, communist, fascist, have legal systems. But we have one too. But in the state of New York, it's not a justice system. It's a legal system that is used by a one-party state to deliver for their Democrat president, their Democrat Congress. That's what's going on. And it is grotesque. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
As I think about it, Mr. Producer, Stormy Daniels in that courtroom is perfect because it fits into the legal pornography that's taking place in that courtroom, don't you think? Oh, yeah. I think so. Anyway, we move on. It's hard to move on because this stuff is so disgusting. It's happening to our country. It's so appalling. If you want to hear what Biden said at the Holocaust Museum, you can go online and listen. But I want you to hear what the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, had to say on the Holocaust Remembrance Ceremony today. Cut 4, go.
We did that together. And we did it because it was the right thing to do. We did it to help Israel protect its borders, to fend off threats from Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah and all the proxies. I was proud to pass that package after months of conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu, with the ambassadors and all the people there who are trying to defend their nation against the threats that are facing them. And now I think it's very important that we deliver that critical assistance without any delay at all.
Apparently, I need to repeat myself on something that I said yesterday, so I will repeat it today. In a constitutional republic, one member of the legislature, or in this case, our Congress, the House of Representatives, ought not have the power to force a vote on whether the leader of that body stays or goes. Under what form of constitutional republicanism, as a matter of fact, under what form of parliamentary democracy, under what form of any free or relatively free governmental system does one person who represents 700,000 or 800,000 constituents, maybe not all of them, but let's pretend they do, wield that kind of power? It's a rule that the Republicans, some of them, forced on Kevin McCarthy. It's a rule. It's not the Constitution. It's not a founding principle. It doesn't come from the Magna Carta. And it's anti-republicanism. It's anti-constitutionalism, and it's anti-democracy. I'm anti-pure democracy because mobocracy is as dangerous as fascism. But we'll put that aside for now. We have the best system of government. The problem is we don't have the best people who are running it. But I want to be clear. Those who support what the hell's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing, and Gosar and Massey, they're not constitutionalists. They're not conservatives. They're not little d Democrats. Because they support this rule that allows one member, maybe three, to force a vote where there's a one-vote majority among the Republicans, to force a vote on whether the speaker stays or goes. I am sick and tired of these drama queens. I am sick and tired of this performance art where these guys get nothing done. They talk about shutting down the government. What's their strategy? They talk about securing the border. What's their strategy? How? When? Where? They don't have the votes. Let's hear it. Lay it out. I'll read it on the air. Now, it's one thing to push for these things, and I agree with that. Push hard. We've been doing that here on this program before any one of the members, any one of them, was ever elected to the House of Representatives or the Senate. We've led these battles with Levin surges. Many of these people got elected with our help. The point is, when one member has the power to call for a vote of essentially no confidence, that's not representative government. She doesn't represent anybody but her own district, if that. So if you're a constitutionalist, if you're a real conservative, you should object to this rule. This rule gives power to people who, in many respects, support anarchy. They think anarchy is a program. They think anarchy will carry the day and get us what we want. Anarchy and chaos. I'll tell you what will get us. Minority status in the House of Representatives. They're not the true believers. They're not purer than we are. In fact, they're not true believers at all. They draw attention to themselves. They're good at that. They beat their chests about what everybody else should do. They're good at that. But they don't know how to lead. They're not statesmen. And you can believe whatever you want to believe. You can go to the floor and scream till your eyes pop out of your head and blood pops out of your ears. You can go on my beloved Fox or talk radio and say whatever you want to say. But the fact is, you're not doing anything. You're not moving the needle. You're not even building a movement. So, of course, I oppose the effort to depose the speaker. And as I asked when it came to Kevin McCarthy, and I'll ask again, and replace him with who exactly? Who? A relative minority among the Republicans don't get to choose the speaker. They're not going to be able to choose the speaker. And then I love this line. He's going to have Democrats vote for him in order to keep his job. Well, they needed Democrats to vote against Kevin McCarthy in order to get rid of him. And that didn't seem to bother many of the same people when they enlisted the Democrats to remove McCarthy. So I don't need to hear the BS, the incoherence. I remember when Reagan was running in the Republican primary. Mr. Conservative. He challenged the establishment. He fought the establishment. He almost won the nomination in 76. And he runs in 1980. And yet still some Republicans challenged him. They said he wasn't conservative enough. They said his record as governor wasn't good enough. They had supported a bill on a mother's health and abortion that even he admitted was wrong, and they go over the whole Reagan wasn't good enough. Nobody's ever good enough. Now, we know who the bad Republicans are. The Romneys, the Collinses, the Murkowskis. There's a long list in the House and the Senate. I got it. They're right. And where possible, we should try and defeat them. When I started endorsing candidates over 20 years ago on conservative talk radio, nobody, I repeat, nobody in syndicated conservative talk radio was doing it. Nobody. You just didn't do it. But I did it. And I did it a lot. Ask Marco Rubio, who won't come on the program. Ask Ted Cruz. Ask Mike Lee. Even ask Rand Paul. Ask them. We won some and we lost some. The Tea Party. The most important show, the most important book, Liberty and Tyranny, and the Tea Party were one and the same. I got it. I understand. When I was a young man, I mean young, we took on Bush. We called the state animal, the rhinos in Pennsylvania. We fought them hard. We organized against them. Organized. In the trenches, in the streets. And we eventually defeated them. Reagan got the nomination. I don't see this here. Get the power, because you get one vote under a preposterous rule. But don't worry, we'll take out this guy, Johnson, and then there'll be another one. And then we insist that rule stays so we can take the next one out, and the one after that, and the one after... Oh, that's great. I have a better idea. If you really feel this way, why don't some of these people get off their asses every weekend and campaign in districts that have these rhinos, but where a conservative can actually win. So if you're going to take a district that's 20 points Biden, and we have a Republican in that district, would it be stupid to take out the Republican, Mr. Producer? Now, there are occasions when you need to, don't get me wrong. If they're constantly undermining your party or undermining conservatism, I got it. But because you disagree with them on half a dozen votes, then I don't get it. I forget which one it was who said there's really no difference between Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson. I thought, now how stupid is that, Mr. Producer? Who was that? Boebert? Boebert? Really? There's no difference between the two. I can give you 1,000 differences. But why do I have to explain it? You know, the American people, the differences. The Democrat Party's the enemy. The Democrat Party hates America. If they control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, it is over. It is over, over. And you can have as many rules as you want in the House of Representatives, many speeches on the floor as you want, many appearances on this show and Fox and the rest as you want, while the country's burning. If I saw actual plans and they could be explained on this program or any program, I'm all in. But there aren't any. There aren't any. Zero. Other than if the leadership would just listen to me. Oh, okay. But that's not leadership, to say if leadership would just listen to me. You've got to deal with numbers. You've got to be able to persuade people. That's the whole point of the speech and debate clause. You've got to go out in the trenches and take on individuals who you think are actually harming the mission. But don't play games with us with the Washington bullcrap and the bureaucracy. And, well, we got this rule. We're going to issue this. Oh, good for you. Fantastic. They're going to trigger the rule. There's going to be another vote. People who are not as engaged as we are going to look at this and say, these bastards, I'm so sick of it. Inflation's through the roof, and on and on and on. You know, there are people who have ideas that are the greatest ideas imaginable, but they never do anything with them. Have you met people like that, Rich? I have a great idea for this. If only people would listen to me. I have a great idea for that. If only people would adopt it. Aren't you sick of hearing people like that? Because those are people who are losers. Losers. They're not doers. They're not leaders. They're not statesmen. I'm not picking on any one individual. I'm talking generally. You can fill in the blank if you choose to. I don't agree with everything that Republicans do, Republican leadership does, conservatives do, any more than Scalia and Clarence Thomas always agreed. They didn't always agree, but they approached the problem the same way. Relatively so. And sometimes they came up with different results. Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it is. So supporting this effort is not supporting the Constitution. It's not supporting conservatism. It's not supporting MAGA. It's not supporting anything. It's not supporting Trump. Trump opposes this. He told, what's her name? MTG. He said, get over it. Move on. That's what he said. What I'm saying is, they'll do what they want to do, but don't wrap it in constitutionalism and conservatism and Americanism. That is BS. You got a rule change by holding a gun to Kevin McCarthy's head, where one bastard can stand up, whoever it is, whether it's Democrat or Republican, call for a vote on the speaker, and that is not representative government. And I can promise you that the father of the Constitution, Madison, would never have supported that. I could promise you one of the greatest patriots of all time, George Mason, would not have supported that. None of them would have supported it because they would have called it the tyranny of one. They didn't believe in that. Neither do I. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Once again, Pure Talk, my sponsor, my wireless company, is investing in their customers. That's you. I'm happy to announce Pure Talk is now offering international roaming to over 50 countries. That's right. As you plan your summer travel, make sure your wireless provider has you covered at home and abroad. Pure Talk already puts you on America's most dependable 5G network, but now they're offering you coverage in over 50 countries as well. You get unlimited talk, unlimited text, plenty of 5G data, just $20 a month. And that's less than half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. They're ripping you off, folks. Bring your phone and get great savings on the latest iPhones and Androids. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin and make the switch right now. Again, this month, when you go to puretalk.com/Levin, you'll save an additional 50% on your first month. Folks, switch to Pure Talk so you can afford to travel this summer. Now, here's the Admiral, John Kirby, who's not really an admiral in any serious sense of the word. Sort of dumbed down what means to be an admiral, quite frankly. But he is a top-notch propagandist. Cut one, go.
The U.S. backs Israel's intention to eliminate Hamas.
We, of course, back their right responsibility to go after the Hamas threat, to eliminate that threat. Now, look, Jackie, I've said many times here, you're not going to eliminate an ideology through military operations.
All right, let's stop right there. This is an admiral? It's an admiral? When we eliminated the Third Reich, we eliminated an ideology in Germany. When we dropped two atomic bombs, we eliminated an ideology in Japan, Imperial Japan. And when we defeated fascism in Italy, we defeated an ideology in Italy. I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. It's a talking point that they always say, you're not going to defeat an ideology. That means you need to appease the Islamist terrorists. That's their point, because you can't defeat them. Well, sure you can defeat them. They've been defeated throughout history, and they have been defeated, as have other ideologies been defeated. How many stupid people surround this man who's stupid in his own right? But this guy Kirby gets a pass. Why? I don't know. I'll be right back. Once again, Pure Talk, my sponsor, my wireless company, is investing in their customers. That's you. I'm happy to announce Pure Talk is now offering international roaming to over 50 countries. That's right. As you plan your summer travel, make sure your wireless provider has you covered at home and abroad. Pure Talk already puts you on America's most dependable 5G network, but now they're offering you coverage in over 50 countries as well. You get unlimited talk, unlimited text, plenty of 5G data, just $20 a month. And that's less than half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. They're ripping you off, folks. Bring your phone and get great savings on the latest iPhones and Androids. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin and make the switch right now. Again, this month, when you go to puretalk.com/Levin, you'll save an additional 50% on your first month. Folks, switch to Pure Talk so you can afford to travel this summer.
Liberty's voice, Mark Levin. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
So we have this so-called documents case. Another phony case. Excuse me, fixing my microphone. And, of course, that was brought in the wrong jurisdiction, Washington, D.C., in front of that grand jury, but that was intentional on the part of Jack the Ripper Smith. Then he moves it to Florida, not too far from my Florida bunker, north of here. God's country, may say. And but there's a little problem along the way. The documents, the order of the documents has changed. Excuse me? The order of the documents has changed. The first time I saw this was in Just the News by our friend John Solomon. In a stunning admission, special counsel Jack Smith's team is admitting that key evidence in former President Trump's classified documents criminal case was altered and manipulated since it was seized by the FBI, and the prosecutors misled the court about it for a period of time. Legal experts told Just the News the revelation could prove to be a serious problem for prosecutors and a violation of court rules to preserve evidence in the state. It was seized. In a new filing, Smith's team said that the order of documents in some of the boxes of memos that were seized by the FBI SWAT team from Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate was altered or jumbled, leaving two different chronologies, one that was digitally scanned and another the physical order in the boxes. Quote, since the boxes were seized and stored, appropriate personnel have had access to the boxes for several reasons, including to comply with orders issued by this court in the civil proceedings noted above for investigative purposes and to facilitate the defendant's review of the boxes. Oh. You see, Mr. Producer, the generosity and the kindness of the prosecutor in sharing documents with the defense and other litigants is what really led to this, not the mishandling of the documents. There are some boxes where the order of items within that box is not the same as the associated scans, the prosecutors wrote. Smith's team in a footnote also conceded it had misled the court about the problem by previously declaring that the evidence had remained in the exact state it had been seized. Quote, the government acknowledges that this is inconsistent with what the government counsel previously understood and represented to the court. So my questions are multifold, having lived in this world before, really on both sides. Here's the thing, America. You have a special counsel. His entire focus is on Donald Trump. It's not on an office like a U.S. Attorney's Office that may have hundreds of ongoing cases, civil and criminal. But no. This is his only focus. The so-called January 6th case and the documents case. He has access to the most experienced investigators, IT teams that are used to organizing, providing batch numbers. It's an old phrase, but it works for me, and so forth and so on. These documents in a way that they won't be jumbled, in a way they won't be, their order won't be changed. And that's all these people do. You have massive cases that are brought in the civil division of the Justice Department, the antitrust division of the Justice Department. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was Chief of Staff to Attorney General Meese, we had two massive investigations going on against him by two rotten independent counsel. There were literally tens of thousands of documents involved in their document requests. Now, I was the point man, Mr. Producer. If this didn't go off right, they might indict me for obstruction or tampering with evidence. You understand? That's how dangerous this situation was, because these two offices of independent counsel were vicious, just like Jack Smith. So what did I do? I brought in the two experts out of the civil division and the antitrust division who had handled the production of documents, the secretion of documents, the preservation of documents. I put them temporarily on my team in the Chief of Staff's office. And they wrote up an entire blueprint on how we're supposed to handle this. What else did I do? I called in the head of security, former CIA guy who was a buddy of ours, And I said, we have a skiff in the basement. He said, yes. And this skiff is like if you go into a bank and you see the vault with the big door, just like that, except much bigger. I said, these need to be protected. And anybody who comes close to them, we need to have a video camera and we need to have sign in, sign out. He said, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And many other things. As chief of staff, I appointed a deputy chief of staff that would oversee this and report to me twice a day. Would report to the Attorney General. Now keep in mind, I wasn't a criminal prosecutor, not in the U.S. Attorney's Office, not the criminal division. We are responding to document requests by two independent counsel who are effectively roving U.S. attorneys with all kinds of resources and personnel and so forth. Now, let's circle back. Jack Smith has all the power. He has all the resources of the federal government, including the Department of Justice. He has access to pretty much any experts that he wants. IT experts, security experts, investigative experts. This is the number one case in America. The implications for the country and our Constitution are enormous. Enormous. So in any given criminal case, the government, whether it's the feds, the state, locals, whatever it is, they have an enormous responsibility to ensure that those documents are treated in a pristine manner, that you know who's dealt with them, who's handled them. Usually, if it's of a matter of classified information and so forth, people need to be specifically cleared to have access to those documents. It's not a big world. It's a relatively small world of people who can. So how the hell did this happen, Mr. Producer? And he slips it in a footnote? Number one, they lied to the court. Well, Mark, it wasn't intentional. I don't care. They made a representation to the court that was false. Now, how do you make a mistake when you're making a representation to the court about the documents you have in a documents case? How the hell did that happen? Number one. Number two, what do you mean the order of the documents are different than on the digital? Who did that? That's number two. Number three, when you made a representation to the court, before you make a representation to the court about something so serious, you need to make sure the representation is accurate. So why did you tell the court that the documents were protected as received when they weren't? And you did it under oath. Representation to the court. You have an ongoing obligation to the court. That's number three. Number four, what exactly was the chain of custody? What was the chain of custody of the boxes and the documents in the boxes? Who had access to them, and when, and where, and why? The judge needs to order an independent investigation conducted by either a separate United States Attorney's Office, the Inspector General, or another office there called ORC, but it needs to be handled. You can't just go on with a trial when there's a question about the handling of the documents. I mean, Donald Trump's on trial in part because of the handling of these documents. You're telling me that the federal government had classified information and somehow there was a mix-up? Oh, I see. Well, you know what they say about Caesar's wife, Mr. Producer? The government's trying to put Donald Trump in prison over, quote-unquote, the mishandling of documents and obstruction. They made a misrepresentation to the court in a court filing. Then they had to correct themselves. because they would have gotten caught at some point. There's no question. So the same issues, it seems to me, with a slightly different fact pattern, but nonetheless, have arisen. In Jack Smith's office, the Department of Justice, the Biden administration's handling of these classified documents. Were they shared with anybody? Were they removed even temporarily and taken where? To a secure location? An unsecure location? Now, if you're going to indict a president of the United States, former president who's running for the presidency, then this cannot be allowed to pass. The very substance of the case against Trump, which is a pathetically stupid case, is now applicable to the people who brought the charges and seek to imprison him. Now, you see here, the judge in the classified documents case, at least so far, is really the only judge who's a straight shooter. So, of course, she comes under attack by all the legal analysts and other reprobates and hemorrhotics on CNN, MSNBC, and the other essentially unrated networks. And so Judge Aileen Cannon has postponed indefinitely the criminal classification documents trial of President Trump. Part of the reason is because this clown, I have my own theory on this judge in Manhattan. You know what it is, Mr. Producer? You know why he wanted Stormy Daniels to testify so extensively and in detail? Because it excited him. Could it be that he's a pervert, Mr. Producer? Now, these judges, they hide under these black robes. You never know, right? I just wonder if he's a pervert. I'm not saying he is. How would I know? It just seems strange to me that at some point during a testimony, he didn't on his own, and he could have said, whoa, okay, wait a minute. This has nothing to do with nothing. Jury, step out. Mr. Prosecutor, what the hell did you do? You just blew your whole case. But he didn't. He let it go on. Sounds perverse to me. So the trial are charges that Trump willfully retained classified national security records after leaving the White House and then hid them from federal authorities. Oh, yes. Because everybody knows that if he hid them from federal authorities, nobody would ever figure that out. So she has moved a new slate of pretrial proceedings till July 22nd, effectively, because of the pornography trial that's going on in Manhattan. But she will need to address this, because this is a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Once again, Pure Talk, my sponsor, my wireless company, is investing in their customers. That's you. I'm happy to announce Pure Talk is now offering international roaming to over 50 countries. That's right. As you plan your summer travel, make sure your wireless provider has you covered at home and abroad. Pure Talk already puts you on America's most dependable 5G network, but now they're offering you coverage in over 50 countries as well. You get unlimited talk, unlimited text, plenty of 5G data, just $20 a month. And that's less than half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. They're ripping you off, folks. Bring your phone and get great savings on the latest iPhones and Androids. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin and make the switch right now. Again, this month, when you go to puretalk.com/Levin, you'll save an additional 50% on your first month. Folks, switch to Pure Talk so you can afford to travel this summer. Jim Pierre, the White House briefing today. Apparently it's a big secret with Kirby and, excuse me, and Jim Pierre and everybody else in this administration, whether or not they are withholding weapons from Israel. Even though Joe Biden goes to a sacred place, the Holocaust Museum and Memorial, and says, my backing of Iran is ironclad, excuse me, I think he meant Israel. My backing of Israel is ironclad, except when they need weapons, except when it comes to toppling their government, except when it comes to the International Criminal Court, except when it comes conducting war crimes investigation, except when it comes to blood libels against the Jews who are fighting for their survival.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Let me look. Yes, I'm here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Yesterday, we talked about CBS for no rational reason that we can figure out. At the end of the season is cutting the show Blue Bloods. It's one of my favorite shows. I hope it's one of yours. Tom Selleck is the lead actor, but there's many great actors in this program, and it gives an honest and patriotic portrayal of police officers, NYPD in particular. So why now, when the ratings are very solid, when many of us love this show, especially when it's pro-cop. They're not sycophants, but it's pro-cop. It's pro-law enforcement. So here's what I want to do. And I'm counting on you folks to be polite and civil, seriously, as you are in this audience. You know, it's not MSNBC or CNN, and certainly not the Hitler Youth on our college campuses that vote for Biden. No. So I think, at least for now, the best way to approach this, Mr. Producer, is to tag them, as you put it, on X, that is Twitter, and tell them you want Blue Bloods to continue. Does that make sense? So why don't we put that link on my social sites? Are you able to do that? And I think what I should say is, this is an official Levin surge. Please leave a civil comment on the CBS Blue Bloods Twitter site. Is that the way to put it? On their X account. Oh, excuse me. X account urging CBS not to cancel Blue Bloods. Something to that effect. So you'll be able to go on any of my social sites, and there it'll be, and I hope you will hit the link and do it. I can tell you on the air, it's twitter.com/bluebloods.cbs. That's twitter.com/bluebloods.cbs. Look, I figure we have nothing to lose. You might be thinking, well, if you get involved, they may get their backs up. Well, if we don't get involved, nothing's going to happen except they'll cancel it. And you're the customer. You're who they need. Once again, it's twitter.com/bluebloods.cbs. Hello, twitter.com/bluebloods.cbs. Just in a very polite way, encourage them to keep the show. Because we like the show. I would encourage all you cops out there to do the same thing. But patriots from any background, it's a very, very entertaining program with some great actors in there. Jean-Pierre. You know, I've criticized her a lot. She deserves it. But on the other hand, look who she works for. Imagine going in every morning trying to get the boss to tell you how he wants to address issues. It must take like 7.5 hours just to have him finish, a thought. But nonetheless, that's the career she's chosen. Did Biden withhold arms to Israel? Obviously he has, because it's gotten out probably could have gotten out by 1,000 different ways. The people who manufacture the munitions, transport them, deliver them, ship them. The Israeli side? Who knows? Pentagon? So it's this great secret. Yes or no? Cut 5, go.
There have been multiple reports that the Biden administration has slowed arms transfers to Israel, including direct attack munitions and potentially some other weaponry. Can you confirm that? And if not, why not?
So we don't comment on specific cases.
Why not? Hold on. We're not talking about a specific case. What are you talking about, you idiot? They only leak incessantly. Are you with... Now, here's the thing. They have to tell Congress because they're impounding funds. Congress passed a bill that would, among other things, provide these munitions to Israel. With a lot of fanfare. Biden wanted it done. They got it done. And now he's either blocking or slow-walking munitions. While he's giving Israel ironclad support, it must be true. He said so at the Holocaust Museum and Memorial. And he wouldn't lie there. Not Joe Biden. No. I wonder what his buddy Mandela would say. Oh, Mandela wasn't his buddy. I'm sorry, I'm very confused. Go ahead.
We have been saying, and we will reiterate from here, is that our commitment to Israel's security is ironclad. I know my colleague from NSC was asked the same question a couple times from your colleagues, and we just don't have anything to say beyond what I just laid out. Yes, you do have something to say. Stop with the ironclad crap. Your support for Israel is not ironclad. In fact, your support for America is not ironclad. What seems to be ironclad is your desire for the survivability of Hamas. That seems ironclad. Why don't you talk to the old iron ass and get a serious answer rather than the ironclad? So they won't answer it. So it's going to be left to Congress to get to the bottom of this, America. Speaking of which, this is from our friend Adam Credo at the Free Beacon. Sales to Israel from Congress sparking probes. Senators want to know what types of ammunition are being withheld from Israel and why. We have a dictator in this White House. He thinks he can control whatever he wants. No, Congress is involved in this. Well, we won't comment further. Just know our support's ironclad. The Biden administration hid information about its decision to pause U.S. arms sales to Israel from Congress, sparking a probe led by 2 GOP senators. The Washington Free Beacon has learned. Senators Joni Ernst of Iowa and Ted Budd of North Carolina, in a letter sent Monday evening to the White House, are asking the administration to immediately inform Congress about what types of ammunition are being withheld from Israel and why. The pause in these ammo shipments was approved last week, but only because it became publicly known over the weekend when the decision was leaked to Axios. I tell you, this guy Barak, what's his ass again? Ravid Barak. What's it like stabbing Israel in the back, Ravid Barak? What's it like being a mouthpiece for the Biden administration? What's it like being a stenographer? A stenographer for the most anti-Semitic administration in American history. What's that like, Barak Ravid? You have any class? No, you don't. Biden administration is holding up shipments of 2 types of Boeing-made precision bombs to send a political message to Israel, one U.S. official told Politico. So these leaks are coming from the State Department and the White House. We're going to teach Israel a lesson. No precision bombs for you. Now, first of all, think about how stupid that is. Israel says it's trying to avoid, and is, through its actions, civil casualties. So what does Biden withhold, Mr. Producer? Precision weapons. Precision weapons. Why? So the civilian casualties go up so he can further trash Israel? No, you don't understand. We may have our differences, but I have ironclad support for the state of Israel. And I don't lie when I'm at the Holy Grail, the Holy Land of the Holocaust Museum. I would never do that. We Bidens don't do that. We're shocked that your administration has reportedly decided to withhold critical ammunition to Israel, the senators wrote. You promised your commitment to Israel was ironclad. Pausing much-needed military support to our closest Middle Eastern ally signals otherwise. except to the media. Oh, this makes sense. The senators say the White House failed to notify Congress about this decision, leaving lawmakers to learn of the decision from press reports. The letter signals mounting GOP concern with the Biden administration's increasing hostility toward Israel as it launches an offensive campaign in the Gaza Strip's Rafah neighborhood, which the U.S. has lobbied against. The report halted ammunition sales, said, being viewed as a sign the Biden administration is caving to pressure from the Hitler Youth on our college campuses and the big Democrat donors like Soros. We must give Israel the arms it needs to fight the Hamas terrorists that continue to hold Americans hostages, the letter says. We call on your administration to immediately restart the weapons shipments to Israel today as it continues to fight Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and other Iranian-backed threats. How come he hasn't halted money to Iran, but he halts arms shipments that Congress passed and approved to Israel? Which ammunition did your administration withhold from Israel, the senators ask? Why did your administration decide to hold this ammunition? Did the administration withhold any ammunition that was approved by Congress in the recent National Security Supplemental? Does your administration have any plans to withhold further assistance from Israel? So the letter asks the administration to explain its conflicting statements. Oh, we have ironclad support for Israel, except when we stab Israel in the back. On August 24, you signed the National Security Supplemental into law. Promised you will always make sure Israel has what it needs to defend itself against Iran and terrorists it supports. If these reports are true, then you have once again broken your promise to an American ally. Now, last time I checked, Senators Ernst and Butt are not Jewish. Senator Schumer is. Says nothing. Senator Bernie Sanders hates his faith, hates Israel, hates America. He's a Marxist pig. He's an Islamist pig. He's all for this. He says cut off all arms to Israel, period. He's a Stalinist. He always was. I explained that to you the other day. Why did your administration fail to notify Congress, they write, about this decision to withhold assistance to Israel? If your administration decides to withhold further assistance to Israel, would you commit to communicating such a decision to Congress beforehand? No, you don't understand, senators. He's for democracy. He defies Congress, defies the Supreme Court. He defies the law when it comes to stuffing cash in his family's pockets. The border's wide open. He defies immigration laws. But he's standing for democracy, and he has ironclad support for Israel. Don't worry. What a POS this puke is. Puke. You don't like the word puke? Oh, there's other words I can use, but not on the air. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. I have a little treat for you. Cliff Sims was a special assistant to President Trump. He's a man of deep faith. And he writes about The Darkness Has Not Overcome. That's the name of his new book, The Darkness Has Not Overcome. Cliff Sims, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me tonight.
It's my pleasure. You're good friends with our buddy David McCormick. I guess you knew each other from the administration.
That's right. Yeah, we've known each other a long time, helped out on his first campaign. He's become a good friend, and hopefully we can get ourselves a good conservative up there in Pennsylvania.
God willing. So this is a very different kind of book. It's a book about belief and faith, and yet having to deal with the dark times of what happens in an administration and so forth. So what gave you the idea to write your book? It's The Darkness Has Not Overcome. You can get it at Amazon.com, and Mr. Brutus will put it on our platforms and link to it.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's sort of a political junkie's dream devotional book is how I describe it. So, like, if you want to know what it's like inside the government's doomsday bunker, or what it's like in, what's inside the president's nuclear football, or what it's like in the cabin of Air Force One or inside the halls of the CIA, it's got all those kind of in-the-room details. But one of the things that I realized when I left the administration, Mark, I was kind of wrestling with, like, what that time period of my life meant for me, and was writing down, just kind of journaling about what I learned through that process. I realized that a lot of the lessons that I learned would apply to anybody's life that's out there doing, whatever, whether walking through the fire or trying to deal with anxiety or depression or just trying to make sense of this current moment in American life. And so I wrote The Darkness Is Not Overcome, one, to kind of get at some of those lessons, but two, the title comes from John 1:5, which says the light shines in the darkness and the darkness has not overcome it, which is a promise that I think is an encouragement to all of us at a time when, frankly, we're facing, not just a dark time in American politics and culture, but also, Christians and believers of all sorts, facing persecutions that, we've really never witnessed before. You've talked about this. I mean, we got these, genius reporters going out on TV and talking about how, the concept that our rights come from God and not from government is some kind of Christian nationalism or whatever they say. So it's a unique moment in American life, and I wanted to write something that's unique to this moment.
And it is very unique. And tell everybody a little bit about your background, because that contributes to how you wrote this book, why you wrote this book, and why it is unique.
Yeah, so a son of a Baptist minister, grew up in a family of ministers. So faith has been a big part of my life from the very beginning, and was fortunate enough to come alongside President Trump and work as a special assistant to him as communications advisor in the West Wing. The only room between my office and his office was the Roosevelt Room in the West Wing, and then later getting to come back and serve as Deputy Director of National Intelligence and helping to oversee the U.S. intelligence community under Director John Ratcliffe. And so I was able to kind of take those experiences and weave those really cool stories behind the scenes into this larger story about faith in American life today.
The book is The Darkness Has Not Overcome. You can get it on Amazon.com, any major bookstore. We link to it now on my social sites. So, Cliff Sims, you got to witness the president under very difficult and dark circumstances. And what did you see?
Well, with President Trump, I saw a president with the guts to do the hard thing. I mean, I talk about many, many stories that I could point to point that out. But, one, kind of sticks out to me is the courage to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, that every president since Ronald Reagan had promised to do it and backed off because they were worried about, what might happen in the Middle East were they to do that. And the president just said, I'm going to follow through with this. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I saw a president who was able to build an incredibly strong economy, probably the strongest that we've seen in modern history, and then was, dealt a tough hand with COVID once in a millennia pandemic and navigating that, but somebody who was just willing to just stand up and put a little steel in his back and take on the critics and take on the establishment and the elites in this country in a way that we haven't seen in a long, long time. And right now we're seeing the exact opposite. We're seeing weakness, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. And I think that's contributing to a lot of the mayhem that we're seeing in every corner of the globe, from the Middle East with what Hamas did on October 7th in Israel, to Eastern Europe with the Russia invasion of Ukraine, to, pretty soon maybe even in Southeast Asia with China breathing down Taiwan's neck. We really need to get that courage, those guts, and that ability to, reinstall some credible deterrence on the global stage back in the Oval Office.
The book is The Darkness Has Not Overcome. You can get it on Amazon.com. I'm linking to it on all my social sites. When we come back, Cliff Sims, I want to hold you with a break. The Democrats keep saying if Donald Trump is elected, we will lose our democracy. He will imprison them. He will shut down media sites. You work closely with him. You saw him. How do you respond to that? We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, America's mentor of conservatism. Call now at 877-381-3811.
Cliff Sims worked as special assistant to President Trump. He also worked as the deputy to the National Director of National Intelligence. You got to see the president up close and careful, and particularly very stressful situations, very important situations. And you hear what his opponents are saying about him in the media. You hear what Biden's saying about him in the media, about destroying democracy and all the rest, and that he's Hitler and a dictator. What would you say to them, Cliff Sims?
Well, I do find it ironic that they say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy when only one party, Mark, is prosecuting their political opponents. Only one party has their political opponent in a courtroom on trumped-up charges all day, keeping him from being able to campaign and take his message to the people. Only one party has thrown law and order to the wind and thrown open the doors of our southern border, which has led to violence and drugs flooding into our communities and killing our children. Those are real threats to democracy. Donald Trump is not a threat to democracy. He's a threat to the utter lawlessness that we're seeing, and he's a threat to the left's hold on power, which is their God. And in this new book, The Darkness Is Not Overcome, I write about needing to put politics in the right place in our hierarchy of priorities as people of faith. Well, the left's hierarchy of priorities places power at the top. Power is their God, and the pursuit of power is their life's mission. That is what Donald Trump and the movement that he leads is actually a threat to.
Now, your book is filled with lessons learned and lessons you want to pass on to the reader. Again, as somebody who is a man of faith with a background in that respect in the family, and somebody who's now served really at the highest levels of the federal government and so forth. Give us a few examples of what it is that you want to convey to people from your book.
Yeah, I'll give you one example that jumps to mind that kind of illustrate how the book works. So I take people inside one of the government's doomsday bunkers. So when we got to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, one of the things that we had to do, we would do these exercises on continuity of government. If there was, God forbid, a nuclear attack or some giant weather event take out power on the eastern seaboard, and we had to be able to maintain the government's operations, continuity of government. And so we're inside of basically this mountain, hundreds of feet underground, and a giant metal blast door opens, and we're going these golf carts into this underground city that even had like a made-to-order grill, which is like the most highly fortified made-to-order grill in the world. We see the sleeping quarters. We see our computer systems, and I see these people in a room that looks a lot like these doomsday movies you see on TV and in the big screen, where they're monitoring things all over the country. And I started thinking about the anxiety that the people who work in that doomsday bunker basically have to feel all day, every day, and how difficult it must be for them for that to be their life. And then I start doing some research on, the fact that right now 83% of Americans say that we feel anxiety. And we become a nation, and more concerningly, a people of faith, a church of worriers. And that is not a biblical worldview. And so the lesson to take away from that is that there was preparation and faith are not in conflict with each other. In the Bible, we see Noah built the ark in preparation for the flood, or Daniel held back food in the lean years so that they would have food when it came time, or in the big years, so you have food in the lean years. And the lesson there is we prepare for the future, but we do it with faith that God is the one who is ordering our steps, and he's going to be the one that takes care of things. We don't have to worry about the future. So that's the example of a story, an anecdote behind the scenes in government, and a takeaway that you would get from it.
It really is a totally different kind of book. It's a book kind of prescient, really. I'm sure many of these things were swirling around you when you were starting the book, but you couldn't necessarily realize what was going to take place. When did you start writing the book?
Yeah, I wrote it probably about 6 months after I left government, and I'd really been wrestling, Mark, with what that time period of my life meant for me. And one of the things that was difficult for me was, once you are in what C.S. Lewis called the inner ring, the inner circle, and you kind of have that power, and you've been behind the curtain, and, you don't want to let it go. And so I felt like after I left, like, what will I ever do that's going to be as important as this, so to speak. And, of course, that's ego talking, but it also had to come to a realization that that's just not true. That one of the things that the gospel talks about is who we work for is much more important than what we do. And it says everything we do in this life, do it as unto God, as for the King. And so, anything I put my hands to, whether it's in the White House or in a coffee house, is important. There's meaning in it, because if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it as unto God. And so that really kind of changed my perspective on things. And so as I kind of started journaling, as I was wrestling with that stuff, that's really what led me to want to write this book that I thought could resonate with other people as well.
I think you're going to love this book, folks. I really do. It's got a very spiritual element to it. by Cliff Sims, who you hear now was Special Assistant President Trump and Deputy National Director of Intelligence. The Darkness Has Not Overcome. The Darkness Has Not Overcome. It's a brand new book. You can get it on Amazon.com or go to any of my links on my social sites. If you happen to be there, grab a copy. It's a very readable book. It's a very intriguing book. And as I say, it's got really a spiritual aspect to it that's very much needed today. So, Cliff Sims, I want to thank you, and I hope everybody grabs a copy of your book. Any final words?
Oh, it's just an honor to be on with you, Mark. I've been a huge fan for so long, and to finally be on with the great one, it's really a dream come true. So thank you for the opportunity, and I appreciate you very much and everything you do for the country. You have served this country well and used your platform in an incredible way. So thank you for that.
Well, you're very humbling. I really appreciate that. That's Cliff Sims, author of a great new book that I think you'll find very, very important. The Darkness Has Not Overcome. The Darkness Has Not Overcome. It's actually a very positive spiritual book that links in events that took place while Cliff was working for President Trump and beyond. So grab your copy at Amazon.com, and God bless you, my friend, and good luck with your book.
Thank you.
All right, take care of yourself. Really good guy. Very, very good guy. Ever hear of Mark Lamont Hill? Remember this guy used to be at CNN? He's a real lowlife, this guy. I guess he's still a professor. Used to be a professor. But there's many like him in academia. And here he was in Philadelphia yesterday at the University of Pennsylvania. Hasn't the University of Pennsylvania been having some problems with this issue of the existence of Jews? Cut 7, go.
And don't let the media or anybody else have you think that when we say it's a principled struggle against Zionism, that we're talking about Judaism or that we're talking about Jewish traditions or Jewish cultures or Jewish ritual. No. We're talking about political Zionism. We are talking about the creation of a Jewish ethno-state in historic Palestine that dislocated and dispossessed indigenous Palestinian people, took their homes, took their land. That's right. That's what we're talking about. Palestine.
Of course, this guy is an ignoramus. My view, he's always been an anti-Semite, always been an Israel hater. Let me try this again. Open your Bibles. Tell me where the Palestinians are. There weren't any. Palestinians are Arabs. So they decided to market themselves as Palestinians because it sounds like Palestine. And they weren't just Arabs, they were Bedouins for the most part. And many, if not most of them, lived in what today we call Jordan, a fake country with a fake monarchy. Judea and Samaria. Now look that up in your Bible. They're there. 4,000 years ago, the Jews lived in Judea and Samaria. God brought them there. No joke. They're the indigenous peoples of Judea and Samaria. There was no West Bank of Jordan. There was no Jordan. So to call it the West Bank starts your history in 1948. West Bank? And when you use the nomenclature incorrectly, when you use it for propaganda, it has an effect. The indigenous peoples were the Jews. They were pushed out of there by the Babylonians. Then they came back. They were pushed out of there by the Persians. Then they were pushed out of there by the Romans. It's their homeland. It always has been their homeland. The formal creation of a state. You know, modern day, we talk about a state. 4,000 years ago, we didn't talk about a state. But we do today, and we have for hundreds of years. The Palestinians come, no, excuse me, that's our land. It's never been their land. And they've never been, quote-unquote, Palestinians. The whole thing is a fiction. It's a concoction. He wouldn't talk about indigenous peoples in the United States this way, would he? No, of course not. So for Marxist Islamists, history begins when they want it to begin, and that's why they're Marxist Islamists. But we are, and I've been attacked for this, but I'll continue to say it till the day I die,
We are in a second Muslim crusade. Now, that's not to say that there aren't wonderful Muslims in America and elsewhere. There certainly are. And I have several who are friends. Oh, yeah, Muslims. I do. And they can't stand Hamas. And by the way, many of them can't stand, quote unquote, the whole notion of the Palestinians. I'm just being honest. They're tougher than many people when it comes to this issue. But there's a second Muslim crusade. Not by Muslims who assimilate into the West and so forth. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the Islamists. That's why Europe. Look at London. Look at Sweden. Look at Germany. Throughout Europe, look. Look at the United States. Look at our streets. Look at our colleges and universities. Look at Dearbornistan. Well, what is that? Have to be able to speak the truth before our speech is taken from us altogether, and the truth won't matter. That's the truth. So this Mark Lamont Hill is talking to an encampment at the University of Pennsylvania and spreading his hate. Spreading his hate. And the media have done us a grave disservice. Grave disservice. And the little media entrails like Media Matters and Mediaite and the other entrails, they've done us a grave disservice. Why? Because they will not show what took place on October 7th. Even though the footage was taken by Hamas as they were raping, slaughtering, beheading, burning, torturing, and executing. NBC won't show it. ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, my platform. And unless people actually see what was done to other human beings, this will never sink in the way it needs to. And yet they use the information from these sadistic subhumans who did this on October 7th that is fed to them by these very same people. And Victor Davis Hanson and I are correct. There's no difference between Hamas and the Palestinians. 87% of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip support Hamas. That's the latest survey. Almost as many supported October 7th. So what is this distinction? Are there good people? Of course they're good people. There were some good people in Germany too, but that's irrelevant. Some is not enough. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Well, that's interesting. Remember who Stormy's lawyer was, right, Mr. Producer? Michael Avenatti. This is in the National Pulse. The attorney once represented Stormy Daniels in lawsuits against former President Donald Trump now says his former client has likely committed fraud and falsified business records in an effort to conceal income and avoid legal fees she owes the former president. Michael Avenatti posted a long statement on X, formerly Twitter, detailing his accusation and asking whether Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg would be pursuing fraud and falsifying records charges against Daniels. In June of last year, Avenatti says film producer Sarah Gibson contacted him regarding a documentary about his former client, Stormy Daniels. Suspicious of Gibson's motives, Avenatti says he recorded his conversation with her. And it goes on, and I'm posting this. And that's something, if she's on the stand again on Thursday, this needs to be pursued. Watch how the judge tries to protect her in what is the porno case of the century. Because the judge appears to be really into this, listening attentively to all the details. We used to call that a pervert. I can't accuse the judge of being a pervert. I don't know them, but I do wonder if he's a pervert. Can I say I wonder if the judge is a pervert, Mr. Producer? How do I know whether he's a pervert or not? I want to salute all of you, thank all of you. You are great patriots, red-blooded Americans. We shall stand together, come hell or high water. See you tomorrow.